What's up, y'all? Welcome to the latest episode of Power Spike. It's your boy dGon here, alongside Dom and Jamada to break down as the middle of the LOL esports world, the only place to do that week in, week out. We're getting close to playoff time. We are starting off the second round here in the LCK. We're going to the last couple of seeding matches in LTA North, and just 1 week away, I believe, here in the LEC. But those are the baby regions compared to our now growing team owners' expectations of his org. Ruddy Sack get the job done. They get the monkey off their back. They beat Bulldog Esports. Fucking Kasing goes down in flames, and it is Ruddy going to the upper bracket finals. How did that feel, Dom?
Yeah, it felt pretty good, like I like to see us finally play like we do in scrims versus Bulldog. So we were able to beat them even when plays went poorly for us. Like we were able to bounce back in the games, we were able to continue like sticking to the game plan, and I feel like the team is actually improving. Like our team has scrimmed way more than the previous team, and that was what we said at the beginning, right? Is like the whole idea of the other roster was like, okay, the players didn't really want to make a big commitment to scrimming, to practicing. It was kind of like, oh, we'll be good enough to win anyway. Clearly, that wasn't the case. Like, I mean, I think that could potentially work in ERLs, but unfortunately, players are just not good enough, like in their roles or whatever, to actually be able to make that happen. And when we restructured the roster, the whole idea was we're gonna actually just put the work in and try hard to actually get the results, because I think it's way more fun to watch this Ruddy Sack experience of like, oh shit, now we're going to a live event. If we had the old roster, we're not gonna make this live event. Like we're gonna fucking lose. We'll be fifth, sixth again. Like it's going to be the same exact story. Now we actually have a team that is going to be like showing up. They're fun to watch because like they're scrimming together. They like each other. The vibes are better. And yeah, it's just like nice to see them. I hope that some of the other teams in LLC are able to see what we've done and follow in our footsteps. Like maybe like Los Ratones or something.
I think Los Ratones are just following in your footsteps. No, is that
Yeah,
how
they're
that
following in like
happened?
our old footsteps. Like not the new footsteps.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Jamada,
Yeah.
you got to
Yeah,
watch
man.
the series. What did you
I
make of it?
I did. I mean,
Yeah,
it
bitch, what'd you
was
say? Yep. Let me hear it.
look,
Let me hear it.
hey. I don't know where you found the child to sacrifice them. I don't know what volcano you threw them in, but you know what? Fair play. I don't know what deity it was, but just good job
Hell
on
yeah.
doing all the research you needed. All right. Look, I was happy. I was happy. Obviously, like jokes aside, Jake is still one of my good friends, so I do root for you guys underneath the hate persona.
Oh,
It's
okay.
just that
All right. Yeah, sure.
I like seeing Jake, struggle and go through a little bit of stress to get to the success.
Yeah, that guy's a
But
basket case, by the way. Every single game we play, that guy is a complete fucking basket case. Like, I
he's
can
meant to
just
be.
Yeah.
He
tell
is.
based off what he's saying to me, like how stressed he's like, but I still think we can win from this point, right, Dom? And I'm like, yeah,
He
we
wants
can
reassure.
win.
He's turns into like the needs reaffirming girlfriend in situations
Yeah,
like
yeah.
this, just constantly.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was a good series. Bulldog also, like, no disrespect to you guys, but they just did not show up either. Like they've been playing okay this split. I'll argue like worse ish than last split. Um, but yeah, I mean, game one was a complete fucking rollover, and then game two, I was actually concerned for you guys because you ran a comp which it felt like a few weeks ago, very similarly, you lost to. It was very shotgunny. It was like Nico, Vi, MF. But this time around, you guys actually found enough combos, and more specifically, Nata and Peng like really hardcore stepped up. So, uh, yeah, super happy there. And the other upset I know is more like Sack Tap, but I'll use it to talk about the NLC just very broadly because you touched on Los Ratones. They fucking got 2-0 to Nord, which is not actually as crazy as I think people think it is. Um, I feel like A, Los Ratones did have a horrendously bad day, but B, Nord, it felt like kind of just cracked the code, which has felt very simple for a long time. Los Ratones draft in a very one-dimensional way. Like their drafts aren't super high variance; they're typically very reactive, and it felt like Baus just got abused to the point where Velia didn't actually get to salvage the rest of the map, and there wasn't like a positive lane state anywhere in both games. And I think this is a very good example of Los Jonas' weaknesses inside of draft being exposed, but then also attacking Baus, but doing it in a way where you're not dropping resources on the rest of the map. So they're not at Denmark. Ruddy's at fucking Denmark, which is crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I
And
hope that they can
we'll
join
see if
us.
they do make
We're
it.
doing
Yeah.
we're doing some like charity tomorrow. We're actually going to scrim them, so hopefully they can like improve from playing against like one of the best teams in the NLC. So it's nice, you know, like kind of the way I see it is like it's like Make a Wish in a way. That would be the vibe that we have over here. So yeah, I mean, I just hope to see them there as well. You know, I love to root for the underdogs.
Would you call this scrim a situation of giving them the fish or teaching them how to fish? I'm just curious. Like how do you see the scrim?
It's like giving them a fish, you know, like
Yeah, okay.
that's mainly what it is. Yeah.
Okay.
You've had a lot of content and questions about it recently, Dom, about the the viability of Los Ratones and the LEC and kind of their shortcomings right now. Did you just want to touch on it real quick for the podcast listeners that haven't, I guess, seen the content that you've put out yet?
Yeah, I mean, it's weird, right? Because people will ask questions like, how would Los Ratones do in the LEC? Where I feel like if you're being intellectually honest, the answer has to be not that well. Like maybe ninth, maybe ninth, maybe like if other teams show maybe eighth, but like the LEC bottom teams are not that bad. Like I would say that Nord is worse than every
virtue of Rogue existing. Ninth is the floor, to be fair. Right. So
I don't know. You think okay, best of 5, you have to stake your life on it between Rogue and Los Ratones right now. Tomorrow they play a best of 5. Rogue and Los Ratones, who wins?
Adam splitting Baus' cheeks a little bit too far wide open. I don't think it's salvageable.
Yeah.
To be fair, yeah. So yeah,
so
the likelihood is like Ninth is still a stretch.
So I feel like this is kind of like a normal take. Like if you're comparing the level of the regions. Now I reacted to a Nemesis clip today where he was like, yeah, but like we would practice more if we were in the LEC. So it's like of course we wouldn't be 9th or 10th, which is not what I think people are asking. Is like how, like when somebody says how would Los Ratones do in the LEC, I don't think that they're, or like how is Los Ratones compared to LEC teams? I don't think they're asking like if Los Ratones got like 3 months of boot camp and they didn't stream their scrims. I think that they're just saying like if they play right now, who's better. That's kind of how I interpret it. So I mean, maybe if Los Ratones was, I mean, obviously if Los Ratones was in LEC, they'd probably have a different approach, different schedule. Who knows if they would have the same roster? Like, so I could see, I don't think like the org is doomed or anything. I just think that like right now their level isn't that high to beat LEC teams. And there is like a massive level difference. Like our team is doing pretty well in the NLC. We scrimmed an LEC team a couple days ago. We got completely fisted. Like it wasn't even remotely fucking close. Like it was just like fisting session. All right. Thank you for the scrims. And we're like, we'll probably never see you again because we're probably just like too far beneath your level to actually give you any viable practice. Like that is like the difference between the regions. And like as somebody who owns a team in the NLC, I mean, I just feel like that is it's what it is. Like that's like expected, you know? I wouldn't expect us to win any games versus LEC teams in scrims.
Yeah, I don't think that the question that has been going around isn't like at peak, because if it was at peak, just look at your roster from last year last split with Perks, Jankos, Leader, Hums, sure, and then Hustlin. Like that's a pretty peak roster right there at the top. So I do think it's more of a genuine question of like where they're at now and how they would do there. And it is playoffs. It is kind of NLC, so you can lose a series like that if you're Los Ratones. But I feel like it's just difficult to have that conversation when you're losing in like the early rounds of playoffs. So just something we want to touch on here and open the conversation about here in the Sack tab. All right, that kicks off a nice little start to our episode. Now's a good time to remind you guys about our friends over at Mando. Now, Mando is a whole body deodorant that's safe to use anywhere on your body: pits, balls, thigh folds, belly buttons, butt cracks, and feet. And it was created by a doctor who saw firsthand how BO was being misdiagnosed and mistreated, and it's clinically proven to block odor all day and control odor for up to 72 hours. All products are baking soda free, paraben free, and clinically proven to control odor better than soap and shower alone. 12 hours after a shower, the average man's grundle was an odor of 5 out of 10. With Mando, the average grundle odor is a 0 out of 10. So if you want to try America's #1 whole body deodorant formula right now, you can find them at Walmart, Target, and other retailers across the country. But for the best deals, head on over to shopmando.com and get your hand on Mando's starter pack, which is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, and 2 free products of your choice, like the mini body wash and deodorant wipes, along with free shipping. And as a special offer for our listeners, new customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. That code is SPIKE. Now, if you haven't done it yet, head on over to shopmando.com and use the code SPIKE to get yourself the $5 off the starter pack. That's up to 40% off your starter pack using the code SPIKE at shopmando.com, shopmando.com. Thanks to our friends over at Mando for making the magic happen. And again, it's all products that we use daily here over at Last Free Nation. All right, moving next down the list, we got a little high key, low key, no key. And it's who impressed this week. This one doesn't have categories that we're sliding people in. Your hosts are going to bring who fits into what, who impressed, who high key impressed, surprise impressed maybe, or like the level of what they did, low key impressed, little sneakiness, and then who didn't impress but still got the job done. Let's get to it. High key, low key, no key. All right, let's start with the no key. Jamada, you can start here. Who got the job done but wasn't very impressive in the process?
Oh, who got the job done? Man, okay. I wasn't sure which one you were going to open with. The Noki is the one that I'm kind of. I suppose you could technically argue top esports, but they also lost to AL. I'm going to go top because their games just looked really wonky the last week or so. Even I think it was the JDG series from actually before our last show.
Yeah.
They have just been looking weird, and they've been looking weird for weeks, right? Um, this team is just off, but they make enough good plays around the map and individually that it just about works. But then, you look at the IG series from was it Saturday, I want to say?
Yeah.
Um and they may as well have lost that series 3-0. It just so happened that IG gave them those games on a fucking platter. Especially, the Mako Blitzcrank game. If you haven't watched that, I implore you to go back and watch that. It's actually comedy what he was doing on the Rift. Um, but yeah, I don't know whether it's like Jackie Love kind of giving up his life in weird positions again, kind of like Jackie Love of old. Whether it's Kanawe doing weird stuff. Though
No.
I think I don't know. I'm always very torn on Kanavi, and I always have been since I've been in the LPL. Even when he was on JDG, I wasn't like a big fan, which I feel like was kind of a hot take for the time. Um, it still just kind of feels like 369 is doing a lot of the heavy lifting and like staying stable in a lot of games, uh, and kind of getting them across the finish line. But then you look at the AL series, and it was like all of the writing was just on the wall for I like from that IG series, and even like some of the FPX and well, the FPX they ran over FPX, but JDG
Yeah.
especially uh into AL. So where at the no AL nearly perfect gamed IG. I almost mixed that up, but again, still just didn't do anything to impress in the AL series to me. And I think rightfully so lost. And I'm now kind of concerned-ish about top esports at like the high end. I don't think they're going to drop out of top two just because of the way that the table sits. But I am much like anyone who watches the LPL is just a dedicated top esports hater. That is how it goes. Um, I'm not convinced. Like in a world where the top of the table was slightly closer, right? There was maybe more teams with 9 wins, right, alongside AL. I would very comfortably say that this team could slip out of top two, but just because everyone else has been so volatile, beating everyone, losing to everyone, uh, they're my no key team for this week because it's a fucking miracle that they are first place in the LPL, given how they've been playing the last like 2-3 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the AL game, it's like the Flandre's answer of Yorick to Jace felt like that was a cool checkmate, and I really hope that that carries over here to the LCK. But yeah, I think that's a good pick. I wanted someone that got more done, but I guess they are, 3-1 over their
They're top of
last several.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's a hard
and they're top of the
hard
table.
yeah.
All right, Dom, who you got here for your Noki? Got the job done, but not very impressive.
I'll say BLG after they got the Beichuan swap in, because they did win all their series with Beichuan, including they beat like Weibo, which is like a pretty good team right now. Like Weibo's been pretty solid right now in the LPL, but it just doesn't look like they're back. Like it really looks like they're super out of it. I mean, even when you watch some of their games versus lesser teams, like they played against TT, who was the team that Beichuan joined BLG from, that is now completely fucked because they just essentially don't have a jungler. Like they're supposed to be in contract talks for Wei, but that's not happening. So they're playing with their academy jungler. He doesn't look like LPL level. And Beichuan was a huge part of that team. Like he was a huge like shot calling voice on the team. Like even in that game, they were having some disgusting, like ugly sequences. I mean, they're taking like 41 minutes to end games when they have an 8K gold lead at like 20. It's like, it makes no sense. So BLG is a team where like technically they're back. Like if you look at the standings right now in the LPL, and you're like, oh, BLG, how are they doing? They're actually 4th right now in the LPL. Before this JDG win, they were 3rd in the LPL in standings, but they don't feel close to being like a 3rd best team in the LPL, even though they technically are getting some wins. They don't feel like they're that level. So
There's probably stronger
yeah.
arguments for WE, like just because of the 5-win streak. Though I don't know. I think WE are going to gas sooner rather than later, and also they have a pretty hard back end run of schedule. They basically play all of the teams above them again. So like, except for IG, who I think they're tied with. It's like IG, BLG, Top Esports. They've still got to play TT again, who obviously bottom of the table, and then it's right back to like AO Weibo. So they're still playing basically all the teams with more wins of them than them. And
Yeah.
obviously they've beaten teams above them because they just came back from being 0-7. But I don't know. I like this WE lineup. I like what they're doing. Sorry to derail you a bit here, Dom. But yeah, they're probably gonna gas themselves out, and I don't know. I feel like the BLG will actually be the good measurement here on where BLG stand too.
Yeah. I mean, we get to see BLG tomorrow, right? BLG have a match versus AL, and AL has looked right now like the best team in the LPL. They look like really on point. They had one bad series to JDG where they looked off, but besides for that, they've pretty much been good the entire time in LPL. And I think that they just have like a really good mix of styles that they play, which makes it very hard to draft against them. They have a very good read on the meta right now, and it feels like they just will always have something that they want to play. Like every time that I watch them draft, it feels like they're the ones that are dictating the draft, and they're the one who the enemy team is drafting around, as opposed to when you watch other teams play and it's like they're trying to like come up with what they could play in situations, but it doesn't feel like they like what they end up on. Like even for example, IG today, like I can tell that even though they end up on the Gwen, it's like they would much rather play the Jason Italy. Like that is what the Shy wanted to play, and it's like I guess I'll play the Gwen here because it's the thing that's up. So it doesn't feel like IG is dictating a lot of the drafts because it's hard to fit in a lot of their picks, but AL feels like they have like a very, very clear way they want to play the game. Even when the enemy team has like a clear first pick, they have the answer, right? So enemy team first picks Jace, they responded instantly. Yorick Pantheon. Jace has such a hard game. It has a lane that's very hard. Not in the early game, but it's a lane that becomes hard throughout the game versus Yorick. And then if he ever steps up, he's just getting Pantheon ulted and dying on side. So yeah, I don't know. I just feel like BLG is probably my Noki excited. Like they're technically 4th place in the LPL. This is like not a 4th place LPL team where you feel confident. This is a 4th place LPL team where you feel like they're severely underperforming still.
I like both of yours. I'm just surprised that neither one of you took the two teams, neither one of the teams that share the number and the letter in their names, either T1 or 100 Thieves. Like I feel like the 100 Thieves Dignitas game was such a fucking mess. I mean, they shared the comms saying like, well, I guess we win a team fight, win the game, and no one in that group seems to be able to punish them to fix their issues. I mean, obviously it's FlyQuest who won last week, but it's the bar. They're the bar,
like T1
and the
is
scariness is that team is just going
no.
above them.
T1 is discounted for. I mean, they had the easiest week known to man, right? They had like DNF and KT. Like that shit. Like it doesn't get much easier right now. Those are literally like the 9th and 10th best teams in the and the LCK right now.
I guess the issue with that one was because you were still pulling out Lucian in games 1, 2. You know, like
Mm.
if it's the easier teams, I think it would be better if Guma's your guy to play the champs that you want them to play. Like, yes, it's
Oh, he's not
Berserker
playing that shit,
who
bro.
is playing
They
that.
they made
But
the
like
decision.
they're just gonna be the they okay, this is out of the champ pool and we're just gonna play with your weird fucking
They're just gonna
champs.
play Zaya. They're just gonna play
No
Zaya,
Kai'Sa, no
Varus.
Ezreal.
Yeah, they're gonna play no Kai'Sa, no Ezreal. They're just gonna play Zaya, Varus, Lucian. They're gonna play fucking Jin. They're
And
gonna
maybe
play
Jinx if it gets
Ash,
there. Jin, yeah.
Jinx if it gets there. Yeah, I mean they'll just be playing Guma champs. Caitlyn maybe a
Yeah,
Draven
again,
every
yeah.
now and then.
not to
They're not
derail,
playing.
but
They're not playing Zeri, Ezreal, or Kai'Sa.
no, they're definitely not, and not to like fully derail into T1 talk because I don't think we're gonna go there this segment. But I just hope that they continue to identify that if you've got Guma in and you're going to stick to this champion pool, owner needs to be on quote unquote carries, right? Like he had 2 games Pantheon or 2 games in Pantheon, and I can't remember what the other
It was
what the other
Vi.
champ
It was Vi. It was
Vi?
so
Okay,
illegal.
like Vi is, you know, like Vi's a dog champ, but like more skirmishes like that, the occasional Lilia, stuff like that. Those are the kind of champs I feel like I need to see owner on if you are not going to run, a proper 6-man, have Smash come in. Landed on Guma, this is your champion pool. I think if they don't have owner playing those champions, and they're just gonna lack a dedicated carry because no one else in our roster is really locked in and engaged like that right now in terms of champ pool.
Yeah. That was one of the games that the bros were able to sneak by when he was playing the Skarner rather than some skirmisher fighter carry type that he normally plays. Those are the low keys. Those were the no keys. Who are you low key interested in? A team that got the job done. You're like, okay, I could see the way that this is trending, and it's trending good. Dom, we'll start with you.
I felt like that when I was watching the Weibo games. Like I think the Weibo has progressed in like a pretty nice way, even though they did end up losing to BLG. The one game they won, they stomped them, and then I think that their drafts weren't like amazing in the other games. But it feels like they've kind of locked in on like a style here, where they just know how they want to play. Their drafting is like makes sense, and they also just have they have very strong identities of each player within the team, which I like. So I would say that they should have beat BLG, or I think they could have maybe made a run for high key. But overall, it feels like since they lost to like FPX and WE, since they had those like bad losses, they really like revamped things and got to a good place when it comes to how they view the game together, and everyone knows what they're doing at all points. And I think that the games they do win, they look pretty clean in. So I would say Weibo for me is a low key.
Jamada.
Not super exciting pick 'cause I feel like it's in the circulation of talk right now. But I'm rocking with Heretics, man. I'm liking that they're coming together and looking a little bit okay in the LEC. The reason why they're my low key is because the likelihood of them breaking into top 4 is just super low. Even though like the bottom end of that top 4 is heavily underperforming, right? And they are technically, let me look at the standings. They are technically tied with G2 still, right? No, I mean they have one more loss than G2. G2's got a game in hand, or a series in hand rather. That's why they're my middle of the pack, because Sheo is unironically very close, if not, depending on who you ask, maybe individually the best performing or most consistent, highest level performing jungler in Europe right now, just because Yike's been super inconsistent. G2 is kind of up down, so it's hard to really fully gauge Scumon on a super real level, though Scumon is definitely one of the shinier parts of the G2 machine as it is right now. And Razork is also underperforming to his own expectations by a fair margin, but still playing well enough. And then also, I'm going to give my flowers to Camillo, man. Like, especially after how bad his first split was. Like, he was getting blasted basically every single lane. It was a bit relentless, honestly. But this split, if you go and take a look at the stats, and also just like a lot of eye tests, he's doing his job. He's just remaining stable in mid, and that's all he really needs to do with the setup that he's got around him. And occasionally he picks up the mana when he does a little something, and he's carrying. So I like that he's being stable inside the lane the first 10-15 minutes. He's worked on that, and then he's being proactive outside the lane when it makes sense. The reason why they're my not mid key, my low key again, I don't see this team doing anything super crazy, right? Bumping into top 4, knocking out one of those top 4 teams, let's say in playoffs once we get to it. But they've been fun to watch progressively get better. Their mid jungle is something that really, really interests me. Their bottom lane is also probably on the scale, technically, the part I'm less excited about or the least excited about. But Carlson also, reminder, like that kid is 19. He's doing all right. He's still kind of showing signs of age with certain plays that he makes and being a little bit too far forward, getting caught off on like timers he maybe shouldn't get caught off on, especially like early in the game. But yeah, the Heretics lineup is pretty exciting, and I think as a project that was supposed to be a bunch of rookies, they're doing the development part really, really well, and I've liked their last couple of performances.
I like what I'm picking up what you're putting down here, Jamada, because for me, along the same lines of a clear identity with a mid laner who just does his job, and it's nice change of pace. It's Calix and Nongshim. They did go 1-1 and got blasted by Hanwha Life, which is expected, but their last loss before that was against Hanwha Life in round 1. So,
Yeah.
you don't hold that against them too much. They're a team that had a surprise resurgence in the jungle from Gideon, and then just fucking listens to Lehens. It's just a listen to Lehens team, and it kind of shows the value of Lehens, and it shows the value of having a stable mid laner who can do their job without doing something stupid or getting outplayed way too hard. And it's just nice to have that as the bar team that's tied with T1. That's
Yep.
the other team that they need to beat if they want to break into it. But along the same lines as what you've said, you don't really expect them to
Yeah.
clang and bang up with the big boys too much. You're gonna lose to Genji and Hanwha. It's 2-1 against T1. So as they're trying to figure it out, maybe that's a team you could sneak by and pretty much replicate the LCK Cup success. Because a lot of us, myself included, I was a big Nongshim anti and thinking, hey, this is just going to fade. It's really easy to organize a team when you have a big voice there who knows how the game's going to be played and everyone listens. But now that they're, adjusting the drafts a little bit, leaning into Kingan's unique champion pool and having Calix not be a coin flip player like Fisher, while Jiwoo is still underperforming, getting a little better, but still underperforming, this is a team who's doing their job and still has upside to grow into, I think.
Yeah. And I
Uh,
very, very briefly, sorry, just to keep on giving them their flowers a bit, because I think it's a fun team.
yeah.
The other part, and I always get very fussy with this when it comes to top laners, is especially when you have mechanical top laners come into a league, into pro play, oftentimes, and it's very meta dependent, it feels like they get thrown on the slave champs immediately, right? Sion, Ornn, whatever the Kassan tells you the last 2 years.
Yeah.
But honestly, you go and look at Carlson's match history, they're just leaning into the fact that this guy is better on carry champions. Like he's actually not played a single tank this split. Not one game. Like not even a Cassante game, which Carlson's not that bad at all. Um, it's part meta, of course. The best 3 champs in the top lane right now: Jace, Ambessa, Jace, Rumble, Gwen. But even in later on series, games in series, they're not even really handing Carlson tanks. So like it just seems to be a core part of their identity that they're letting the players play their comfort champs instead of trying to just go, yeah, this is best for like the game state draft, whatever. They're happy to just let the players kind of go, yeah, this is what I play, this is what I'm best at, and we're going to stick to that as a core part of our drafting identity.
But isn't that, and you can chime in here, Dom. Isn't that a problem just like Adam, where the pool is
It,
strong in
yeah,
that small pool, but against better teams that can pinch it or play against it, there's a reason why those tanks would be useful.
For me, it's when I look at that team, it's like they need firepower from somewhere, and it feels like throughout Flockett's career, his best quality has been being a weak side AD carry. Like I think that he was always I mean, he was the guy that was playing like Seraphine and stuff in competitive play. I feel like he's pretty good at utility generally. He's not somebody who's super good in lane. So I think that the way that their team is set up, it's like I like, for example, when they played that game where they played like Ash, Braum, and Zinjao for Sheo, and Azir mid, and they had the Aatrox in this game. Like I remember that draft, and I was like, yeah, this is a solid way to play the game, given the players that they have. So I think that it's one of those things where you just kind of have to know what your team's best at, and you don't really have to play tanks in this meta. Like Cassante is not super good.
Maybe
I mean, it's a
whatever.
little bit better on this new patch, but it's not super good because there's no lane swaps anymore. So, I mean, Cassante just pretty much has like 0 winning lanes. Like, there's no lane that Cassante enters where he's actually supposed to develop any type of lead. Sion's a pretty good tank to have, but it's only super good in my opinion when you're countering certain champions like Jace with it. And then like you can also play Ornn if you want versus things like Renekton. That's another like possibility. But in general, I mean, top lane is a role where you don't have to play tanks right now to really get by. None of the top picks are tank champions. If you think about what the best 3 picks are in top lane, it's Gwen, Jace, and Rumble, right? Like you have like no, and then after that, it's like you go into tiers of like, okay, well, if they picked Rumble, maybe you could pick Galio, which is kind of a tank, I guess. But more, it's just like just an answer pick. Your other picks are like, Jax into Gwen. You could play, Fiora into Gwen even. I mean, you could play like melee champs into Gwen that actually have the chance to beat it. You have like Renekton that can be picked in those situations as well. So you just don't have too many angles where like you need to pick tanks. And yeah, I just think that it's better for them to not pick tanks. Also, when you think about how their team is structured, I feel like Shao's best champions are tanks for the most part. Like I feel like Shao Sejuani is maybe his best champion overall. I mean, he's really good at Vi. He's really good at Sejuani. He's pretty fucking good at Maokai. I mean, he's fine at all those champions that you need to pick. So I think that right now it just depends on how your team is set up. Like, are you going to be a team that's going to early draft Nefiri and try to do that? Or are you going to have your jungler be like a playmaker, tank player, and then you just are going to play more carries in the top lane? And I think that this is like the best way for them to win games, to be honest.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to our high key. So who are you most hyped about after this week here, Jamada?
Kind of. I'm torn. I am torn. I want to say C9, even after last weekend's performance, but obviously under very what's the word I'm looking for here? Doesn't really matter what the word is, just very specific circumstances, obviously, surrounding not being able to practice and such. But also Leon couldn't practice, right, Dom?
Yep.
So I'm torn between C9 and then I'm also kind of torn back towards AL, which is again AL is like the boring answer, so I might just go C9 here. Also, because I was very graciously reminded that as far as LTA North is concerned, like towards the end of the year, there's realistically only going to be 2 world slots because the other slot goes to LTA South, which I don't know why this only it's like bad to admit, but it's only really occurred to me now. There's only 2 world slots for these guys, so it's not like Fly TL guaranteed like in the world where they stay the top 2 and then like third is in. Stakes obviously a bit higher, so I think given the fact that you guys were able to obviously you looked bad, but not losing to Lyon even under those circumstances, and then previous week's performance, obviously only against the Skies, but is what it is. Even with TL bouncing back, I think this weekend I would probably favor C9, and I think they've just generally looked like the best team from a macro perspective inside of NA, and I'm kind of really excited to see how they now shape up against TL, who obviously have had a bit of a soft resurgence ish. Again, playing against DSG and Lion is like it's not super high bar to be like, hey, TL are back after a really miserable looking regular split. But Umpty is playing better. I say very apprehensively. I still feel like TL have their core issues right now, which is that Impact and APA have off the back of what was originally kind of just a very Umpty centric problem, remained playing under their own level. Whether it's core outside lane for APA, like there's a lot of the habitual stuff that we've spoken about for ages, and then like Impact is just losing lanes a little bit harder than they should be. I feel like C9 have a lot of their ducks in a row, right? Early game plans usually very good. Their drafts have been very consistent. I think there's only like 1 draft where I can kind of point out, or maybe 2 absolute stretch where I can go, man, this draft fucking sucked, and it was like very game losing. So yeah, I just think that C9 as a whole, results wise, we'll ignore the journey of what happened inside of the Leon inside the Leon series.
Yeah.
I'm very, very happy with the fact that they can win under those circumstances is a pretty good sign to me. And I want to see how they look against TL now, right? It kind of sucks that you don't get to play them, or that C9 don't get to play them, opening week when they still look like they was on shaky knees. Uh, but yeah, I've liked what C9 have put down. Still sometimes Blabber does the Blabberfish thing. There was the double skull game, which was a bit funky inside of that
Yep,
Leon series. So it's not
that was
like
a
they
Blabber
are.
classic.
Yeah, it's not like you guys are immune to making bad decisions. Um, but again, I'm excited because I feel like 100 Thieves just don't seem like a compare to me, man. They are not improving. TLRTL, and I feel like FlyQuest is the true number one right now. Um, and it's kind of about battling for that second spot, and then like if that second spot is secured, then it's like moving up into first. That's how I see it. So it's a bit of an oddball pick in some ways, but
Yeah.
I've liked C9. I've liked C9, and I have a weird gut feeling about this team because I'm not super impressed with the rest of the region right now.
Since it's C9, what are your thoughts here, Dom? And then we'll get to your hockey.
Well, he's
I mean, I
he's
think
gonna
this
change
weekend just
himself.
showed how important it is that that C9 is that C9 has like Vulcan like on form. Like when Vulcan is like normally the one that is like control this zone at this time, like engage on this person when he calls. Like he's the one that is like once the team is grouped up around an objective, he's the one that is like making all those calls. And like
Yeah.
because of like the fact that he had to wake up at like 2 a.m. West Coast time, hop on a flight, be on a flight for like 6 hours, then he has to go through LAX, go to the go to the stadium, because like the games even like started out so weird. It's not like they were easy games to play. Like Blabber created like the top crab situation, which was really bad in game number 1. Game number 2, like I think our draft is not great in game number 2. Like it's because the series is going like that. It's like a hard series to actually like feel comfortable in. It's not like, oh, I could be like a little bit like less energetic and like the team will carry. It felt like a like kind of a desperate situation. So I think it showed what like how much Vulcan matters to the team. I think it also shows how much like we take away from practice. Like we're a team that I think a lot of the confidence that we have comes from the fact that we're like generally just the best scrim team in North America. Like we just win the highest amount of scrims. So like we use that to like solidify our ideas. Like we go into the week, we have like a very structured schedule. And yeah, I mean, I think that's probably something that we have to improve on as a team, is that like when you go to a lot of other tournaments, for example, if you go to international tournaments, you're gonna have like fucked up days. You're gonna have, the schedule where it's like, oh, one media day, then you have a tech check, then the next day you have another media day, then you have like one day of scrims, and then you have to like play like one stage a day, and it's like, what the fuck, we barely got anything. So it's probably something that we need to become better at, is like playing in suboptimal conditions. But generally the way that our weeks are like very structured. So I think that this was also kind of like a wake up call for the team, where it's like, okay, like we can't fuck around. Like obviously we didn't try to fuck around. Like it was just, we just weren't able
Sure.
to scrim. But like if we are not putting in like full effort, we're not going to just win by default. Like we're not going to just win because we're like better. Like we have to really bring the same energy that we did on the other weeks, and that's how we were able to get the results we were able to get. So I think that that's big for us.
Big insight on Jamada's pick for high key. What is your high key pick here, Dom?
I'm gonna go WE. I was high key impressed with WE because
Yeah, that's fair.
like when you look at this team, like this team has no business even being in the Ascend group. Honestly, I feel like they should be like a Nirvana team when you look at who they have. I mean, they have LCK reject players that no one wants, combined with Vampire, the worst support in LPL for like a year and a half. Cube, borderline reject from LPL, like somebody who like gets chances on like mid to bottom teams. His stock has essentially just been dropping since like 2021 every single year. And then Monkey is like a complete psychopath who has essentially just came from LDL, and when he had his stretches in the LPL, it was always kind of the type of thing where they're like, all right, I mean, he's gonna be super aggressive, he has zero discipline, like no ability to actually like win games, but he could get you like a win every now and then by just creating so much variance in the game that you end up with an advantage. So you look at this team and then you look at what they've done, like they legitimately look like a solid team, and they actually are on the same page most of the time. Like my criticisms of the team are that they at times become like way too they're unwilling to cut losses in fights, and they're unable to like realize what a fight is losing and get out of that situation with like a minimal amount of damage to the overall game. It's like they go into every single fight, and it's like they're always trying to find the angle to re-engage or like squeeze an extra kill here and there, where they could just be running. It's like, oh, this fight started fucking terribly. Somebody got one shot, run. Um, and you look at like the opponents that they beat. I mean, FPX had been on a bit of like a resurgence. You know, people had been impressed by FPX. They beat FPX twice. They beat NIP, who they just looked better than, BT2, who they looked better than, and they had the Weibo win as well. And then even today, I think that they were proving that they're a real team when they were playing against JDG. Like JDG did not easily win this series against WE. WE actually pushed them in multiple different games, and it felt like WE actually had control of most of the games, and it came down to like JDG just having better decision making in some late game situations. And like Shun just played fucking insane today. Like Shun just had a performance where it's like, damn, this Kindred performance is legendary. Like, I don't know. Like sometimes he just goes off like that, and it's like, damn. I mean, like I'm personally a big Shun supporter. I feel like you can see how good he is, like just in the games itself, but even how useful he was on BLG. Like he was the guy that would open the big games and get the kill. And if you think about his performances in a lot of big games, they were generally pretty good. I don't think he had a great MSI last year, but if you go to like MSI the year before, for example, when they played against T1 and Gen G and they won those series, it's like him diving like every single game. Like he's a machine, this guy, and he can play pretty much every single champion in the game. Like his worst champions are probably like the mage junglers, like Zyra. I don't think is like a great champion for him. But like when you put him on Neferi, when you put him on Kindred, when you put him on Xin, when you put him on Jarvan, like Sejuani, it just feels like he's solid as fuck. And yeah, I mean, it took 40 minutes. It's like 3 40-minute games, and JDG ended up winning the series. But I felt like WE was really like showing that they're on the same page with how they want to play games. So they're my high-key impressed team. I would have thought this team would be the worst team in the group Ascend, in the Ascend group by far. I thought they were going to just be 10th. And the fact that they're like battling with some of the top teams, and they're not a pushover by any means. They're taking games off top teams in series that they're losing as well. I think it shows like a lot of improvement, and it shows a certain type of like mentality that they now have. They actually believe in themselves.
Oh, I wanted to go with Gen G, but I feel like I'm not going to have an opportunity to talk about it enough because the change that happened will be more about the change itself. It's DRX and the willingness to bench Teddy to put in Lazyfield, the first ever non-Korean player to play on a Korean team in the LCK. And
because
how
LCK Cup also didn't matter, so this is his debut in the LCK.
Correct.
I like that.
You are correct, according to what I've been told. And it was addition by subtraction. And plus, that original time was because Teddy was sick. That wasn't a testing period, kind of like Smash Guma. That was literally Teddy was sick. He's in the hospital. He has like norovirus going around or whatever it was at that time he's in. Now, by putting him in, you can see how it's changed the team and how Sponge is able to shot call a little bit more. UCal feels a little bit cleaner during these like skirmishy fights around Baron, around objectives. Because that's what would happen before. You would see Sponge had an idea, UCal had an idea, Teddy had an idea, and like 2 guys would go in, 3 guys would go out, and they would all get wiped. And in the games, yes, it was shittier teams. It was Bro and B&K Fear X, who was a mid-table team now. They just look completely different. And so to be able to make the call on a change like that and then have an immediate impact on how the team plays, really cool. Also, Lazy Feel, history, blah, blah, blah. Deathless in his debut, also 2-0 in terms of series start. So that to me felt like a really high-key, impressive performance by the team and by Lazy Feel and Sponge specifically to really get things rolling for DRX this week. Big test next week. It's T1. We'll see how they do there, and then they'll get their ass clapped by like Hanwha Life Esports. But it was a good little run this week. All right. Let us know what you thought about our high key, low key, no key impressive weeks this week and who we missed. Did we miss someone that maybe deserved the shout out? Let us know in the comments below. Now, it's time to remind you about our friends over at Raycon because dads teach us a lot. How to fix things for ourselves, how to pick up after ourselves and power on, and even how to make with make to do with less so the family has more. This Father's Day, let's show our dads that they deserve the world at a price that even they will be impressed by. This Father's Day, treat dad to a pair of everyday earbuds by Raycon because he deserves to relax, recharge, and enjoy his favorite music, podcasts, and calls in crystal clear sound. And as you've heard us say before, Raycon's model is better than ever with a 32-hour battery life and multi-point connectivity that allows you to pair two devices at once. Finally, dad can wave goodbye to all those tangled old wires from his old earbuds. And speaking of batteries, Raycon's quick charge function can charge up to 90 minutes with just 10 minutes of charging. Pretty crazy stuff. I use mine on the subway all the way to LCK every workday. And these earbuds also come with active noise cancellation, which is often difficult to find at such an easy price point. Dad friendly, dad approved. So Raycon starts at half the price of other premium audio brands. So go to buyraycon.com/powerspike to get 15% off site wide. That's buyraycon.com/powerspike for 50% off site wide using the code powerspike. Thanks to our friends over at Raycon. And make sure to plan now for the Father Day that is coming up in your life. All right. Boom. That one done and dusted. Time for another Rankum. And this time it goes back to the lazy field thing that I was talking about. Lazy field inserts into the team and they get the job done. Kind of a cool move. And it wasn't really heralded. It wasn't talked about a lot. It wasn't, Zeus and Doran swap. It wasn't Smash and Guma. It wasn't this huge one. So I want the top 3 low-key roster moves so far in the 2024-2025 season. So from 2024 to 2025, what was one that wasn't discussed as much, but now you think about it and you're like, damn, that's a good move, or we can see the parts kind of working now. Let's get into it. This week's Rankum. All right, let's start. Dom, we'll start with you this time. Give me your top 3 low-key roster moves. And I don't want the big ones, but ones that may be a little more subtle.
Like, and how are we doing? Are we doing it like for the team that got them, or are we doing it for like how are we?
Distinction, yeah.
Yeah,
I think either. If you make a good argument, so like a good argument here would be like, Fnatic getting Mickey, but also G2 losing Mickey. I think that you could do either one of those on either side of
that's
that.
a big one.
But
Though.
that's like, yeah, but that's a big one. That's what I'm saying. So, but you could do either side of that kind of trade, right? T1 losing Zeus and getting Doran, right? That's a big one. So go with like a more of a low key one.
Yeah, so for a low-key one, I would say Shadow joining FPX. Like, I think
That's
that he's made the team
That's a great one.
a lot better since he joined. He brought like a lot of aggression. He essentially revitalized that team. So for me, I think that is one that is, really important for that team. I don't think that they're going to be like doing anything in the Ascend group if Shadow wasn't on the team, and it just feels like he's playing with confidence. He's playing a lot of like really good games. I mean, he's had good Vi games. He's had good Fury games. He had a good Lee Sin game. Like, he's been playing pretty well since he's got that spot. So that's definitely going in there as like one of my favorite ones.
All right, Jamada, you go next, and we'll just do 3 as we go all the way around.
Sure. Kind of touched on them earlier, but I was sort of surprised that BDS let go of Sheo.
Yeah.
And for him to then be replaced by 113, kind of shocking. So I don't want to do like POV of both teams here. I'll just say, for BDS, I'm not sure what the thought process exactly was. Especially just because in general, arguably behind maybe in 2024, like Ice and like Labrov, if he got the Rakan, Sheo was like always top 2 players for making shit happen on that BDS lineup. So it was always a very, very weird thing. And obviously the first split for Heretics wasn't fantastic, but now that stuff is kind of going, getting going and going well, it's clear that Sheo adds a fair bit of value, at least for now, as we're looking at these 2 teams in comparison to the project he's on. So, BDS looked kind of, I don't know, weirdly toothless a lot of the time. with their aggression, with their plays, and they just seem a lot more undisciplined than usual. And I wonder how much of that rolls back around to Sheo, just because if you think about the history of BDS, like the very brief history of BDS, right? Crowley was like one of the big shot callers, got kicked off that team. And then obviously the comm structure had to change. So your assumption would be that it shifts over to Sheo, but then you get rid of your presumably, and this is all assumption here, but then you get rid of Sheo, who gameplay wise doing fine, fulfills his role fantastically. I'm going to make the assumption that he was a big part of their communication structure in game. And then you bring in a rookie in Paris, who obviously Paris is one of the most hotly sought after prospects in the offseason. And then you bring in 113, who historically has just looked bad. There's not that you can't really defend the trade in that specific regard. So yeah, I think BDS letting go of Sheo. I'm not sure if it was like a finances thing. You never know with a lot of transfers unless stuff gets publicly spoken about, right? But then also like get their hands on Irrelevant, which maybe that could be my second pick. Like getting Irrelevant as a very solid top laner to lose Sheo, getting rid of like it's a whole tree of things. So my pick here is for my first pick at least Sheo, BDS losing him and getting more on 3 because it just seems like a massively negative trade.
Yeah. I'll be toxic. Let's go with a Worlds starting player to now, not now, but about to be on vacation in just a little bit. Moham to OMG. That
on
that kind
vacation.
of jettison of going from Worlds and being
No,
in
he's on
D plus
vacation. He's
to
done.
Yeah.
doesn't he have one more game? I thought he had
games.
one more game.
No, I think they
Oh, he
their
played it
games.
already?
All right. Yeah.
No. He's done. He's essentially gonna work at McDonald's for the next like 7-8 months.
Yeah.
He in like
well,
part-time league, you know.
Yeah, it's a little brutal for Moham getting the bump there. So I'll use that as my first low key move of like to disaster. I think after that it would be I think it's the B&K Furex picking up Duro. I mean, not B&K Furex. Gen G picking up Duro from B&K Furex. I feel like there were so many ways that Gen G could have gone with Ruler. And like it could have been anyone. They could have gotten someone from the LPL, but they went with an unproven younger talent who just got his start in the LCK, the split before in Duro, who did change that roster and helped all those guys end up somewhere. Henna now playing over in LTA, but like that felt like such a pretty cool move in a Gen G team that, everyone's talking about the Ruler move or everyone's talking about everyone else, but seeing his growth, hearing his comms and stepping up and being a bigger voice, not being afraid to bitch out Ruler when he's making mistakes. Like that's been a really big, I think, growth move and like a sneaky addition to Gen G that you're going to keep watching when you see the opposite have happened to D plus, who end up with Barrel, which is nice, but they went through Moham, they went through
Is that
Kellen.
nice?
It's a roll of the dice.
I feel like Beryl is like the worst player on that team by far. Like when I watch DK play, like I feel like Beryl is a fucking eyesore most of the time. Like this Bard game, holy fuck! Like this Bard game that he played, Jesus.
Yeah. I agree with you there.
Pathetic.
But I would very unpopularly say I think it's Showmaker is actually worse. I think it's Barrel's play is normally that. He's the flip a coin. I'll play engage. Oh shit, I missed. I died. Or oh shit, we just won the team fight. Now we have control of the rest of the game. I think Showmaker's coin flip has only been landing tails lately, and it's getting a little scary now because it's been, guys, and he is a top guy, but now is he not a top guy anymore? Is Calyx better than him? That's my worry with D plus. But anyways, that's neither here nor there in this case. I think it's more of a Duro. Who's number 2 for you, Dom? Another move that has been
speaking of Calyx.
Radar.
I was gonna go for Calyx because I think that he's actually added a lot to this team. I just think he's a upgrade from Fisher. I would say a pretty big upgrade from Fisher. I think Fisher was like, because they were winning some games, he was kind of getting covered a lot of the time by his teammates and by the game states. And I just feel like when you see Calyx play, you just know he's a better player. Like you just see how much more impact he has in the game. He's a better laner. The way that he plays side lane is better. I just feel like he's overall an upgrade. And I think that that's the reason why Nongshim is winning this split. Because I do think that even though they were top 4 last split, it was a very fraudulent top 4. no one really believed they were top 4, right? Like the reason they were top 4 is because they ended up on the other side of the group, and T1 and Hanwha Life had to play each other in first round, right? Like everyone really knew that T1 was probably the 4th best team in LCK in spring, right? So they got a lot of credit for like going to 5 games with Gen G. It's like, oh shit, like, are they actually good? No, they should have got swept that series. Like, Gen G was playing pretty bad, and they still ended up winning anyway, which goes to show like the, you know, how much of a skill gap there actually was. But now with Nongshim, I feel like the team is much stronger overall, and I think a big portion of that is that they just have better players now.
I like that. That was going to be another one of mine, so I'll have to figure out another one. Jamada, you're next. Who's your second one?
I'm staying in Europe, and I'm actually technically staying on BDS. Because I brought him up, and now I can't really think of another one that jars me more. Irrelevant on BDS, and I'm talking about this team a lot today, and it feels a bit weird because I feel like I never do talk about BDS for very good reasons this year. But you think of a lot of BDS's struggles last year, despite being pretty consistently the 3rd best team. I'd say it's just kind of how it landed. In fact, they did finish 3rd every split, right, outside of season finals. Fact check me on that, but it was like three thirds and like 1/4, and then because of that 4th, they missed out on Worlds. But one of the key criticisms around BDS last year was Adam's volatility, right? So you'd think, you look at Irrelevant's gameplay from last year on SK, and SK's general doomed them despite kind of being middle of the pack. Irrelevant was always the very shining star, and there was a lot of positive narrative surrounding him as a whole. So, and pertaining particularly to his discipline and his consistency, which are 2 things that almost unarguably Adam did not have throughout his 2024 year. So comes to BDS, and I'm not gonna lie, Irrelevant's just kind of been very muted this year. He's not done a lot. He's not achieved a lot. I think it's difficult to say, especially for a top laner on a team that is generally struggling anyway. But considering how much stock a lot of people, honestly, including myself, had in him, it is very surprising to see him go to BDS, and not only like BDS struggling, but then he's also individually just not really showing why he was at least not pseudo, like kind of sought after by a couple of teams. And it's just a big surprise because like I feel like if you whacked Irrelevant from 2024 on like, let's say a Koi are probably doing the same thing, if not like slightly better. Though Koi's identity is a little bit more intrinsically tied into Merwin's champ pool, so maybe that's a bad example. But I hope you understand the overall kind of gist here of what I'm saying. Because yeah, Irrelevant rather, very, very good 2024, despite SK looking bad. And now obviously it's easy to have a good year than a bad year. But this was a move that was kind of soft hyped up, especially because people were high on BDS, barely missing out on Worlds last year, when it felt like they kind of did get a bit robbed. So that is my second pick.
All right, I'll go, and then back to you, Jamada, and then we'll close with I think my last pick here. I don't know. Maybe this is cheating. We can all hold each other accountable here if you think this is cheating,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it's Sven back for you guys over in Cloud9. I think him.
That was one of the ones I considered, but I just didn't want to seem biased. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a banger one.
I think it's a huge one just because he was on Dig and it was like, ooh, that's the last time we saw him and it was okay. And now to just see him come back over at Cloud9 and just slot right on in and have huge performances this whole split. Huge performances this whole split, be part of the strongest bot lane in the league. Like, that's longevity. He's still doing it. He's swapped back roles. Like it's just a testament to how much he knows the game, how much he's a grinder, and how much he does whatever it takes to win. And
he's been playing everything too. Like he's played literally like every champion of the game. Like he's played Tristana, Kai'Sa, MF, like Ezreal, Corki, like Sivir. I mean, he's just playing like every champion, in the game. So I mean, yeah, I think that people like change their expectations fast, but what I try to do is just remember like what was the community sentiment when these rosters were formed? This community sentiment was that FlyQuest and TL are going to completely dominate the league, and that like Cloud9 was going to be third, but there was going to be a gap. You know, like it was going to be TL, FlyQuest way at the top, then a gap, and then it would be like C9 TL. And people didn't think that C9 could compete with these teams. And I think that overall, like the roster has just been stronger. And I think a big part of that is that after the Dignitas split, people weren't really hyped on Sven anymore. They were like, oh, you know, he was part of that Dignitas team. But I think that people don't realize like how hard it is to play AD carry on a bad team. Like when you play AD carry on a bad team, it's normally not going to look good. Like, I mean, look at this fucking Dignitas team, you know, now and you know, like Isles doesn't look great. Like Isles is pretty mediocre when it comes to supports in the LTA, and that's who he was laning with. I mean, he was playing with washed Jensen. You know, Spica was not is not in the league anymore. Like it just like Licorice is the top laner. Licorice is not considered anything anymore. People were still thinking that Licorice could be good because he had a good 2023 and then he didn't play in spring of 2024. So when you look at everything, it's like I think Sven stocks were definitely too low coming into this year.
Yeah, I remember also just the question mark around Phil, Vulcan, and just, hey, you were with Berserker and you couldn't make that work either. That was very, you know, where are we at? Where are we at in terms of
How's Berserker
that
doing
part?
right now in the LCK? I haven't been watching.
He's been doing well. His
I'm just
team
kidding.
is not so good.
Yeah. They bench
They're on
Pioshik though. That's a big
historically bad
W.
pace.
That's a big
That was
W.
crazy. That was
And
crazy.
Pioshik is ass. Like he is just fucking bad. He was the worst jungler of the league by far. Like it wasn't even close.
He was.
I mean,
He
looks
was,
just completely washed. Like
I don't know where the solutions are coming from though. It didn't feel like it was that much better for him. So Doive, bro talent. Okay, Jamada, I stalled long enough. Who's your third?
I have my third. It's technically not a roster move off season, so it's a bit of a cheat. I'll let you guys, you know, judge if you accept it or not.
Yeah.
Erha coming in on Weibo, like the dropping of Hong. I've been very, very impressed with Erha's first couple of series. Now, it's not directly look, I know it's not, you know, fully under the umbrella of what we're talking about here. This is like academy coming up to main team
No,
mid split.
I mean that's like splitting up
it-
Light and Hong is like a big deal. Like
Yeah.
I agree with that.
So yeah, like Hong and Hong and Light were just not a good duo together, and Hong was also not playing well either. And it's very, very surprising just because of I felt like Hong had a lot of development over these last 2 years, whereas like 2023, he was arguably amongst the top teams. Not even arguably, he was the most undisciplined support out of the top teams in 2023. He was constantly costing LNG games just by virtue of him thinking, yeah, I can go in here, and then like his team is 3 screens away. And in 2024, there was a lot of improvement. Then it feels like we've taken 5 steps back in 2025. But Erha's come in, and honestly, again, I don't really have much other to say than praise. I've liked him a lot more in his proactive champions as opposed to his more reactive champs. So like things like the Rel, Rakan. I think he's had a Leona game, or am I misremembering? I think, but yeah, like the Rakan, especially his Rakan games, I've really liked. Um, and I think Weibo are just looking better outright because of it. And it is very surprising to see a rookie come in and seemingly have this much impact, positive impact, immediately on a team, especially just because of the recent schedule that they've had as well. So, yeah, that's my third pick is Erha. Looks very, very promising. Immediately looks better than Hong to me. Um, and he's got a pretty expansive amount of space above him to try and find a ceiling.
You know, not this was the extra, and I actually have no idea if this is impact, but you know, shout out to Nofe, my LCK like coworker who then just goes over to Weibo and is leading a team. I mean, mid pack, but still not easy job to do. All right, Dom, last one.
Yeah, I was debating on who I should pick with my my last one here, but I think that one person that I would, or one that I would throw in there, even though the team is not doing as well, I do think FBI is like a pretty significant upgrade over Tomo. Like I think Tomo
That's a great
is
one.
actually not good. Like I think he's actually like one of the worst, if not the worst, LTA AD carry. And although like Quinn is not playing as well as he did before, and Ayla is just Ayla, I still think that that was a huge move for 100 Thieves, because I think that if Tomo stayed on that roster, I think this team would not be in the conversation for being a top 4 team. I think we would have like a top 3, then bottom 5, as opposed to, what people consider a top 4 and bottom 4. And I think it is a little bit murky right now because the team hasn't been playing as well. But I think when you see how Tomo is performing on a team like Dignitas, like you can just see how much better FBI is. And I think that FBI has been generally somebody who's been underrated by fans in the LTA.
Is he fourth? Do you have him as fourth 80 carry in LTA? Do you have him ahead of one of
It's
the
like,
3 ahead of him?
I mean, honestly, like the way that I see it is, I think that I think 80 carry is generally the best role in the LTA. And I think that like him or Henna, I think it's very close. Like you can make your distinction on what type of player you'd rather have. But kind of the way I see it is that Sven, Yan, and Masu are top 3, and then you have 4 or 5 as FBI and Henna, and then I would say B-Boy is 6th, and then you have Scary Jerry and Tomo as like bottom 2 in like whatever order you want. I think that you can make a strong argument though. Like personally, I think Scary Jerry is actually better than Tomo at this point. Like I think Tomo is kind of like, if you go back, you watch some of these fights that he had on Ezreal, I think a good AD carry could win these games versus 100 Thieves, by the way. Like I think that he was in a position where he could actually potentially win the game, but it feels like he just seems like the easiest AD carry to kill in the league. He's the guy that will just, like, I don't know, just like the way he positions, it just feels like he's not ready for anything, and he just doesn't seem mechanically as good as the rest.
Yeah. All right. There you have it. Those were our 9. So I guess, yeah, we'll give you 9 low-key roster moves outside of the big shocker ones. And then Jamada kind of, nah, I'm kidding. Jamada is fine. Let us know if we missed one. Let us know. I'm sure we missed one that was low-key, and, we just went with an arbitrary number of 9. There were more than that were impactful. So let us know in the comments who else made a move or an impact on a team, or wish they didn't, like Moham, and had greener pastures in the comments below. One more segment to go, and it's because there's a new patch. The new patch has hit across the LoL esports sphere, so we're gonna touch on the biggest impacts on pro play so far in our Galaxy Brain Club. It is the patch, I think it's 25.09 Spirit Blossom Season 2. Let's get into it. Did I get the number right? I think it is 09. Whatever. You guys know what I mean.
Yeah,
It's the
it
first,
is.
it's the first Spirit Blossom one. New Otacon, only 3 grubs. A lot of changes to mages and some supposed to be less Callista priority. What about this patch came through and was the most relevant to pro play here for you to just off the jump here, Jamada?
I mean, the system's changed. The obvious one is just the fact there's only 1 grubs now. It puts a little bit more differentiation between Dragon Prio grubs that theoretically should be less cross mapping for those objectives. I still feel like teams sometimes will just not take Dragon super early, so you will end up in situations where Dragon and those grubs are up. But the separation of those objectives, having such close spawn timers, also just means on paper we should have quite early games, which I think is something, because I feel like the balance team has been trying to appease fans a lot lately. Um, and I feel like one of the core bits of feedback, and it might have even been internally too, was there's actually like fight and skirmish saturation. Like there's almost too much fighting going on, and it's making games like a little bit too volatile, weirdly. So I think that's probably going to be the most impactful change. At the very least, to the first 20 minutes of the game, right? I know there's a lot of discussion around how people feel about Atacon and its overall perceived strength. I've heard people say that they think it's completely piss useless. I've heard people say, you know, it's really, really strong and, the petals are great. Like still doing the old thing with the XP. Um, I'm somewhere in the middle. I don't think it's completely useless, but I think contextually, depending on like comps, like that AoE slow is going to be very, very valuable. But the grubs to me is the main one, right? It's a total nerf on grubs, but like the importance of getting them is a lot higher just because there's only one set that spawn. Um, so yeah, that to me is kind of I'd say it is about the largest. There is one other one, but I'll let the panel make their calls too.
All right, get in there, Dom.
I mean, I would say that for me, the one I would want to talk about is like the feats of strength actually mattering
Yeah.
now, because feats of strength was so when they announced feats of strength, everyone just lost their mind because you got to remember that most league players are very bad at the game. So when they looked at, and also one thing we learned is also really terrible at math. So what they saw was they're like feats of strength like comes in and it's sitting on like a 73% win rate, which was actually just like one percentage point higher than what the amount what you would have had if you had just got the objectives or kills or whatever or first turret in the previous year's patch. So because of that, because there was such an outcry where people were like, I'm quitting the game because of feats of strength. It's like, bro, if you just want to quit the game, just quit the fucking game. Like, we don't need to hear why you're quitting the game. Like, you just don't want to play the game anymore. That's fine. Because of that, they had to intentionally keep, and they said this publicly, they intentionally kept feats of strength weak for the entire first split or first season of the year. They were like, you know what? We don't want to hear the outcry anymore. So they kept them bad, where you essentially just didn't upgrade your boots much. Now they made it so the boots upgrades are cheaper and they're actually cost efficient. So now when you get feats of strength, you actually do get a buff. Like sometimes having the little magic resist shield or the armor, the physical damage shield from the boots are actually pretty nice. And then the way that they changed the boots to be scaling of off adaptive force instead of being movement speed, I think that in general these are like pretty good boots now. So now I think you can make an argument that in games you get 2 items, and then before you get your 3rd item, spend 500 gold, upgrade your boots, and now it's actually something that has some relevance in the game. So that's the one that I would talk about. That's the one that changed the game the most in my mind. Because before, like a lot of people don't even know this because a lot of people that watch a lot of League don't play. But First Blood was only 300 gold before, right?
Yep.
So like the First Blood still doesn't matter to this day, but like that was a big change, and it was supposed to be about feats of strength. And then first turret, you don't get extra gold when you kill the first turret. Like there's nothing that you actually gain from this, and people just don't recognize this in the game. So people will still talk about like, ooh, they got first brick, and like feats of strength will be already resolved. And even casters will say like on the broadcast, they'll be like, ooh, the first brick goes over to this team. It's like wait, feats of strength has already been resolved by objectives and kills and stuff. So you're actually not getting anything from this when the turrets are being traded and stuff like that. So now getting that actually has significance. And for the first 4 months of the year, I made sure to still call out which team got feats, but I always said, this team does get feats. It doesn't really matter, but I feel like it should. So I'm going to keep on calling it out. So now when I'm calling it out, it actually does have relevance in the game. So I'm happy about that.
Yeah. It feels like what Jamada was saying earlier, just a lot of listening to the community and being really hands-on with some of the decisions they've been making. I was a little sad about the boots. I've been spamming a lot of Jin lately, and you buy Swift March, which is the upgraded boots of swiftness, and it's no longer just overall movement speed; it's adaptive force. So that like you can't just run fast Jin anymore. But yes,
Wouldn't it do crazy things if you start getting attack speed because of how like Jin's math works? So if you get attack speed, then the movement speed gets translated into AD. So having
I
those
will.
Wait, movement
I
speed
will
gets
try that.
translated to AD?
Isn't that I
Yeah,
can't. No, it's like it's a weird thing with Jin. I always get it mucked up, but I'm pretty sure it's like
So attack speed gets
attack speed
translated
gives
into
the
AD.
movement speed, but then the Swift March is movement speed to AD now. So
yeah,
getting attack speed should translate to more AD
a little
if
bit
you
more
get
AD.
those Jin. If you get it on Jin.
I haven't optimized it yet. My cheat would be going to I keep it taco because he does all that shit for me or for everyone that plays Jin. But it just that was this like it was just
Isn't
easy
it
to
just that
run
the
around
attack
fast.
speed isn't it just that the attack speed becomes AD? That is?
checking.
I think it's both. I always forget because Jin obviously has such a unique interaction with the stat. Because it's only like him and then Graves. I don't even think there's. Am I forgetting any other champs that have weird
The
interactions
bonus
with attack
attack
speed?
speed, the bonus attack speed is just more damage.
It's
That's what
just
it
more
is.
damage. What gives him?
Yeah,
What
and
gives
then
him
bonus movement speed is just bonus movement speed.
Yeah.
Ah,
Like it's
So
not,
you just need more
I
movement
had
speed.
I had my chat. I had to go through this recently, but yeah,
oh,
my
okay.
chat was telling me that attack speed or that movement speed became AD on Jin, and I was like, I was mind blown.
No.
But now yeah, now we've confirmed it. Cool.
I think the thing that I've felt the most and noticed the most are the 3 grubs, and it's like 3
Mm.
grubs really tears through the towers a lot more. So if you're a pushing team, so it does feel like that kind of trade feels better if you're trading grubs for a Drake before it'd be all right. You trade the first set of grubs for a feat and you get Drake, and that's fine. And then we had that stat on the LCK where it was like if you had 6 grubs, your win rate was like 50%. But if you had 4 grubs,
Isn't it
your
like
win rate was
20% at a
like
time?
no. It was like 5
6 grubs is
grubs.
20%.
6 grubs was 20%, 5 grubs was like 50%, 4 grubs was like
I'm pretty
70
sure
or
5
something like
grubs was
that.
like 70% or something. Let me see.
Yeah. It was making sure that you got some of the grubs, but not all the grubs was higher.
I
It
have it
wasn't
up.
a linear scaling.
So it was 20% for 6, 77% for 5, 60% for 4, and then obviously the reverse for 0, 1, 2, and
Yeah.
3, right?
Yeah. So it was just fascinating to see that. Now I feel like it's an equal trade because if your team can, at least just get a little bit of face time with the tower, it melts through the tower so fast. That's the thing I feel the most, more than the Otacon change as well. Otacon tearing through your team, that's still a thing. Doing it Otacon at 20 minutes, very bad for teams. But the buff, the chain kill buff thing, we haven't really seen too much of that in the LCK. Did you guys see any of that? And I don't remember seeing
I
that in all
I
of the
think
LPL matches.
it's been really rare to see the buff tangibly do something so far. There was one game, it was either yesterday or it might have even been today, where it was like the slow like caught a support or something, and then
Yep.
it like made the chase down really easy to get the second kill. Um, but otherwise, at least so far, like it's not had a massive impact. I'm not saying it's not gonna have impact over time, because at the end of the day, it's effectively like Ginny passive on kills, right? But just huge if you think about it like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm kind of torn. I haven't looked at the numbers and how they have or haven't changed the effects of the petals yet because I'm bad at patch notes at the minute with the XP because that was always the I always kind of felt, especially once they kind of lowered the spawn rate on Voracious before this patch, that the XP was really, really, really like untangibly valuable until you saw someone walk into another champion with like a 3 level difference. And it was because of the Cloud icon.
Yeah.
And especially since durability patch, the old stat was always like each level is 500 or 600 gold worth of stats, right? It's like ever since durability patch, that shit's been closer to 800, 900, maybe even arguably 1,000 on some champs. So levels are super important. So I'd have to double check that. So I still think Icon is strong. It's just we haven't seen the application of hey, this chain slow is basically just giving someone a pentakill, right? And I think until we see that, the perception around it is always going to be very muddled. Um, so yeah, Icon kind of is what it is now. It feels a little bit more boring than the old one for the time being. But I don't also want to see them make a buff that is technically permanent really OP either. When it's just a one takedown thing, right? Because all the other systems, drag if you get a soul, it's like you had to stack 4 dragons for that. So yeah, I'm torn on that icon, but I don't think it's weak. I don't think it's strong. I think it's somewhere kind of just below average.
Yep.
All right, boom. Well, there you have it. Those are some of the patch notes that we've seen so far in season 2 of 2025. and we'll continue to update as they make some changes. In the notes, they also noted like the Roa nerf that kind of happened. They're doing a bigger patch change for mage items and itemization, AP itemization. So we'll see what the balance team has in store moving forward as we go closer and closer to playoff patch and eventually to MSI. All right, y'all. That does it for this week's episode of Power Spike. Dom's going to be co-streaming most of the matches over at the LPL. What else do you have for your Dom?
LPL LCK got scrims this week. I have Sack Down with Yike that we're recording in like 2 hours. So that's what we got.
No matches with Ruddy Sack until
yeah. We're not one of the losers. We're not in the losers bracket, so we don't have to play with the losers yet.
Jamada, what do you got?
Speaking of the losers, I get to cast LR Venom Crest. Their first series in the lower bracket will be a best of 5. Theoretically, Los Ratones should sweep it, but it really depends on about how they bounce back. That'll be on Wednesday. And that team, Venom Crest, also has Kobe. If you remember Kobe from back in the day, went away, came back, and now he's randomly in the NLC, which been fun to see him return. He's not been playing too bad. That said, it's probably not going to be a close series. We'll see though. Maybe Los Ratones are on a full blown spiral, and it could be a very fun series. But that's where I'm at this week.
If you haven't already, now is a good time to buy your Mother's Day gift. Mother's Day is this weekend, y'all, so don't forget. So make sure to buy up.
Is that in the States? It's Mother's Day weekend coming up in the States?
Yeah, it's Mother's Day weekend coming up in the States. So make sure to knock that one out. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you guys next week for another episode of Power Spike. See ya.